Hello everybody, this is a lecture of Ancient Indian Survey, and today we are going to talk about Jainism. In the last lecture we have already talked about the socio-economic reasons behind the rise of various religious and philosophical trends towards the end of the later Vedic period, because of the rigidities that had set in the Vedic society, and there were certain elements in the society which were not happy with the rigid caste system that had emerged towards the end of the later Vedic society. And two most prominent amongst them were Jainism, the two religious or philosophical trends which gained much prominence were Jainism and Buddhism. We are going to talk about Jainism today, and we need to know that it was not only these trends. There was an atmosphere, as we talked about. There were these regions or these places known as Kutuhala Shalas, where people used to gather and have philosophical discussions, and at times out of those discussions were born certain trends, certain philosophies, certain thought processes which did not adhere to the Brahmanical Vedic society. So apart from Jainism and Buddhism, there were many other trends that were emerging. For example, there were Ajivikas who were the followers of the philosophy of predetermination. That is, they believed that it is destiny that controls everything. No matter what you do, the things that are destined are going to happen, and human action and human endeavors are insignificant, and human beings cannot do anything to change a particular course of events. These were the thought process of Ajivikas. And interestingly, in the ancient Indian culture, in the ancient Indian society, the indigenous people, amongst indigenous people, there were these thoughts or these thought processes which were also of atheistic nature or materialistic nature in that sense. This school of thought was known as Charvakas, and they were the supporters of atheism, and they derived their philosophy from materialism, and they challenged the Vedic Brahmanical ideals and the Vedic Brahmanical society. So we know that in ancient Indian traditions, in ancient Indian culture, in ancient Indian thought, there were many diverse opinions. It was not predominated by Brahmanical Vedic ideas. That was a major section, and there were certain challenges to it, and not only Jainism and Buddhism, but there were certain other challenges to the Brahmanical Vedic society as well. So we know that there was a vibrant atmosphere of thought, of religious thought, that was there in the ancient Indian times, following the later Vedic times, basically in the later Vedic, and the society that was nurtured under the 16 Mahajanapadas. We talked about the social religious aspects in the last class, in the last lecture. So we know of these philosophical trends, and again these trends are seen by the scholars as a reaction to the Brahmanical Vedic domination and also of the caste rigidities. It was the Jaina ideas that are placed earlier than the Buddhist ideas, and there is a tradition amongst Jains, and not just Jains, amongst most of the religious communities and most of the religious ideologies, that they want to prove antiquity of their religion or of their religious beliefs or of their thought processes. And that is why it is the Jainas place their own religious leaders or religious teachers. They place them in a particular time period, which would mean that these particular religious figures had lived around the time of 9th century BC in the regions of eastern UP and Bihar. But we need to understand that we need to look at these religious claims in historical context, and we need to test those claims under historical considerations. This is a trend amongst all religions. They want to assert their antiquity, they want to assert their that they had been there for a long period of time, and that is the trend that is being seen in Jain traditions and also in Buddhist, in other religions of the world as well. So what were the basic Jain ideas? They believed in they believed that there were certain teachers that were there of Jain tradition, of Jain religious thought, of Jain philosophical beliefs, and these teachers were known by them as Tirthankaras. Tirthankaras, and it is very used in common parlance as well. They claim, or it is said, or it is believed by the Jains, that the founder of Jainism, whom we come across as Mahavira, Mahavir Jain, was the 24th Tirthankara, and this particular man, Vardhamana Mahavira, who is considered as the 24th Tirthankara, is the last amongst the tradition of Tirthankaras, and his presence is placed around the time of he is born around 6th century BC, so he is located at that particular point of time, and they claim that there are he's the 24th and there are more Tirthankaras back in time, and he's the last one. So this is the religious belief that they have, and it is supposed by them that these religious figures or these Jain leaders that they had, the teachers that they had, they were living in the regions of eastern UP and Bihar, but archaeologically we know that those regions were not settled and they were densely forested in the time that we are talking about, and it was only in the later times that those forests and those regions were cleared out for human settlement. So it is not possible that there would be the Jain Tirthankaras in the 9th century BC, but there are these traditions. There would be some religious beliefs that are there that claim such traditions, right? But it is historically not proven, not possible. Jain teachings, like all the other teachings, like all the other religious traditions, for example Vedic traditions as well, were first preserved as an oral tradition. They passed down orally from person to person, and it was later at a later date that they were recorded and they were noted down and put in writing. Most important of them are, I'll just give you the names of 3 of them: Acharanga Sutra, Sutra Kritanga, and Kalpa Sutra. These are the earliest texts of the Jainas, and these are the religious texts that were written down, and obviously in the early times they were passed down orally and eventually they were written down. The earliest teachings of Jainism are recorded from the 23rd Tirthankaras, the 23rd Tirthankara, the immediate predecessor to Mahavira, and his name was Parshavanatha, and he is supposed to have belonged to Banaras, and he's again was from a royal descent. We'll come to the royal descent angle when we'll talk about the life of Vardhamana Mahavira. It is Jainism eventually split into 2 major sects. It was the Digambaras and the Shwetambaras. Digambaras literally means sky-clad monks, and these monks, this particular section of Jains go about naked without wearing any clothes, and the other section that is known as Shwetambaras are usually clad in white clothes. It is we'll come to the spread of the Jain religious beliefs and their doctrines later, but let's first talk about the 24th Tirthankara of Jainas, that is Vardhamana Mahavira. We will talk briefly about his life. According to the Jain traditions, Vardhamana Mahavira was born in 540 BC in a village near Vaishali in North Bihar. Right, and his father Siddhartha, his father's name was Siddhartha, and he was a very famous Kshatriya clan leader. Again, now he is coming from the second category of the caste order that is there in the later Vedic society, and we know that similar is the case with Gautama Buddha, and it is because of these Kshatriyas who were put second in category after the Brahmins, and they were not they were extracted, and they were also subjugated by the Brahmins because they were second in line. That is why there was certain resentment amongst this Kshatriya category or Kshatriya clan as well against the caste order. And we know that Jaina, Mahavira Jaina and Gautama Buddha both belong to the Kshatriya tribes or Kshatriya caste. So his father was a Kshatriya and his mother was Trishala, who was a sister of Licchavi chief Chetaka. It's like interesting info. And he was married to the mother of Mahavira Jaina was sister of Licchavi chief Chetaka. Chetaka's daughter was married to Bimbisara, the ruler of Magad. So he himself, Vardhamana Mahavira, belongs to a very powerful Kshatriya clan, and he had a royal descent. At the age of 30, he became ascetic, and it is said that he wandered for 12 long years from place to place, and at the age of 42, he attained omniscience, which is termed as Kaivalya, which is something very similar to enlightenment. And following this particular event of Kaivalya, he conquered misery and happiness. So this is the ultimate victory over human misery and human happiness. So he became the Mahavira, the great warrior, because of his victory over misery and happiness. That is the two emotions or two human sentiments that guide human actions. He overcame those when he attained that enlightenment, and because of that attainment, he is known as Mahavira, that is the great warrior. And he is also known as the great hero or Jinnah, and that is why his followers are known as Jainas. Then, following this particular event, when he got enlightenment, he propagated his philosophical beliefs or his thought and his ideas. Just understand that in the beginning, Jainism and Buddhism both were not established religious beliefs. They were ideas, they were certain philosophical trends that were contradictory to the established religious thought process, and they were philosophical trends in the very beginning, which eventually developed to become religious trends, right? So in the beginning, Mahavira Jaina or Vardhamana Mahavira propagated his ideas from place to place. He went to Koshala, Magadha, Mithila, Champa, and he traveled the Indian subcontinent to spread his ideas. He died at the age of 72, and he died at modern day Rajgir. So this is a brief outline of the life of Mahavira, who is the founder of the Jain religious thought in that sense. Let's just briefly look at the Jain doctrines, or what are the Jain beliefs, what do they believe in, and then we'll talk about the spread of Jainism in a very brief manner. So as we know that Jain religious thought or Jain philosophical trend was a kind of a reaction to the Vedic established settlement. So we know that Vedic authority was not accepted by the Jainas, and it did not accept that the Brahmins had the only right to revealed knowledge, right? And they did not believe in the existence of any deity in that sense. And Jaina doctrine or Jaina set of beliefs worked on the principle that the universe functions according to eternal law. Universe is working according to an eternal law that is there from eternity and will stay till eternity, and is continually passing through a series of cosmic changes. So it is going through several changes of progress and decline, and is working according to a established eternal law. And they did not, it's very important, they did not directly condemn the caste system, but they asserted that any person, they did not condemn the caste system, the Varna system, and they believed that any person who is born in a particular Varna has been born in a higher or a lower Varna or a caste because of the deeds that he or she did in the past lives. But they subtly challenged or what would you say, subverted the Varna order and the caste order by claiming that the lower castes can also attain salvation. So even the Chandalas, who we came across as Dalits, can attain salvation. We have talked about Chandalas and Dalits in the last one of the last lectures, and if a low caste person, according to Jain thought, lives a pure life, we'll come to what is a pure life just now, but according to the Jain beliefs, if a low caste person lives a pure life, then that person can attain salvation, and in this manner they are subverting the established caste order, but they did not directly attack the Varna order as Buddhism did. This is very important point to remember. Now, what is a pure life? A pure life is basically living according to certain particular trends, and the purification of soul is the main aim that should be there of anybody's life. And when pure soul is released from the body, it is at peace, it is at bliss. So this was a established idea of Jain thought. Now, what is pure soul and what is a pure life, and how is purification achieved? Purification, according to Jain thought, was not achieved through knowledge. Knowledge is also seen as a means to salvation, as a part of a Vedic or a Brahmanical set of thought or Brahmanical belief. Brahmanical belief made assertion or laid emphasis on knowledge as a means to achieve salvation, or to achieve or to live a pure life. But according to Jainas or Jain thought, purification is not achieved through knowledge, because some of the Upanishadic texts and Upanishadic teachings were in this direction, and they were not agreeing to Vedic and Upanishadic thought. But they explain that complete knowledge or true knowledge cannot be attained by human mind, cannot be grasped by human thinking. They give the example of various people or various blind men touching various parts of an elephant, and each claiming that that particular part was a particular thing, and none of these blind men could understand that they were touching a part of the elephant. And that is the metaphor, or that is the example that they use, that the Jainas use to suggest that the complete knowledge is not cannot be attained by human beings, by human thinking, by human intellect, and that is why knowledge cannot be the means of purification or of salvation of soul, because each man, each person can get only a fraction of the true knowledge, the ultimate knowledge, which according to them is not humanly attainable, right? And then how is a pure, balanced, pure life lived? A pure life is lived, a pure life through which soul is released and receives bliss, is lived through living a balanced life. And that balanced life, according to Mahavira, can only be lived through, technically can be lived by monks, right? So there was an idea of a balanced life, but then there was a huge assertion or huge emphasis on asceticism, that is on giving up worldly desires, giving up worldly ambitions in that sense. And still, when the Jain religious belief asserted that only monks, for example, Mahavira described the pure life that can only be lived by Jain monks, but still the Jain monks lived on alms or money given by the common people. So there were common people who were also needed for sustenance of the Jain monks. So there is a slight contradiction here, but still the Jain religious belief holds that a pure life, which is a balanced life, can be lived by a Jain monk. And they are now, we'll look at those certain elements of a pure balanced life, and amongst those elements of a pure balanced life, the element of non-violence is the most prominent. The Jain tradition somewhat is obsessed with the idea of non-violence, and they assert that even unconscious or semi-conscious killing of small insects insects or small microorganisms in that sense is also a sin, and they also see that as a crime, and that is why they try not to do that. For example, they wear, some of the orthodox Jain people or Jain monks wear a muslin mask over their face, because face and mouth, because they do not want to prevent they want to, because they want to prevent the inhalation of certain small insects that cannot be seen by human eye, and by inhalation and by consuming the air with those insects, they are harming those insects, and that is why they wear those muslin masks in order to prevent any harm to be caused to any living organism. So according to their idea of non-violence, no breathing, existing, living, sentient creature should be slain or treated with violence or abused or tormented or driven away. And this is written, or this is there in one of the 3 texts that I mentioned of the Jainas. It is mentioned in Acharanga Sutra. And it was because of this emphasis on ahimsa or non-violence that the Jainas could not perform agriculture, because in agriculture they believed that there is involved killing of insects and pests when you are doing the process of agriculture, when you are plowing the land. So that is why they did not indulge in the agricultural processes and any craft that would endanger the life of any other living creature was not adopted by Jainas, and that is why their economic activities were now limited to trade and commerce, and because those were the only things that they could do without harming any other living individual. And this was the reason, and this is the reason why most of the Jains today are involved in trading activity, and through this trading activity they were associated with the process of urbanization and spread of the urban culture, because urban culture is associated with long distance trade and commerce and establishment of marketplaces in those urban centers where exchange of products can take place. So there was this idea of non-violence that was very central. There was also another very central idea to the idea of Jainism was the idea of living frugally, or living in the least amount of worldly expenses that you can do. So there was an encouragement to living a frugal life, living a life of an ascetic in Jain thought, and it was according to them ethical to not spend on luxuries, to not spend a luxurious life, right? And so these are the wide this is a brief outline of what Jain religious thought was, and what were the major elements of these thoughts, and what was ahimsa, and how these particular Jain teachings affected the economic aspects of Jain communities as such. Let's just talk about very briefly about the spread of Jainism. We know that it was Mahavira who propagated his teachings across the Indian subcontinent, and he tried to include as many common people as he could, and that is why he made his speeches and made his teachings and preached in Prakrit language, which was a language of the common people. And it was over a period of time that this particular thought and religious beliefs spread in western and southern India. So we were talking about the spread of Jainism, and regarding the spread of Jainism towards the southern regions, there are 2 traditions that are there. One is that after the death of Mahavira, after 200 years, there was a famine, a great famine which went on for almost a decade or more than a decade, was there at Magadha. That famine occurred, and because of that famine, most of the monks who were settled in those regions of Magadha migrated towards the southern regions, and they settled around modern day Karnataka. So that is the That is one tradition of the spread of Jainism towards the southern regions of the Indian subcontinent. Apart from that, there was also a belief or a tradition that was there which said that after Chandragupta Maurya converted to Jainism, he migrated to Karnataka and settled there to attain his salvation, and it was because of that process of migration of Chandragupta Maurya to Karnataka that Jainism spread into those regions. So this is all we need to know about Jainism right now. Thank you.